I'm Sydney, and today I'm going to be reading a kid's book about white privilege by Ben Sand. This kid's book series...
Okay then. Can't wait to hear about how you're indoctrinating the children these days. It's gonna be great. This is gonna be a fun one. I've been wanting to do this video for a while, for like almost a year now. Once I found this video. This book is written for 6-year-olds. So this book right here, this is it. It's a kid's book about white privilege. It's evil. You can buy it if you want to. First thing I want to say is it's written in 2020, so copyright 2020. So that'll give you some perspective on when this was written. And then it's written for ages 6 and up. I remember my 6th birthday vaguely. I remember one thing happening on my 6th birthday, and that was that I got up before everybody else in my house and I was watching Mr. Rogers, and Mr. Rogers was cutting an apple or an orange or something with a paring knife, and he said, you know, you're too young to use a knife this sharp. And I thought, I'm 6, I'm not too young to use a knife that sharp. But one thing I was not thinking about was race, and I was in the 1st grade a few months later, and there was a Laotian girl there, and I remember not being worldly as a 6-year-old. I thought she was Chinese because I thought everybody who was Asian was Chinese. Apparently that's white privilege. Didn't realize. What do you know? This stuff, I don't even know where to begin with it. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I am the Anti-Woke Warrior. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and let's get into this insanity.
This is my all-time favorite series because it's a great way to start a conversation about topics such as white privilege, as kids are never too young to start learning about things like this, and it's so important to be educated about topics like white privilege.
I agree. It's important to be educated about a bunch of woke tards, made up nonsense ideas so that we can understand them better to avoid them. You obviously drank all the Kool-Aid, and you think that you have some sort of unearned privilege just because you're white. And the author of the book, Ben Sand, I'm assuming thinks the same thing. But I more or less am wondering, why does he feel the need to wear a stocking cap while you're indoors? Is it cold in there? Because that dog laying on your couch doesn't seem to be bothered by it. Just one reason to believe this person is not working with full deck.
Intro. It's time white parents talk to white kids about race. To be a child in the world today is to be confronted with the complexities of race, but we still have a long way to go when it comes to this conversation, and we've neglected the topic of privilege for too long.
No, we haven't. I hear about it all the time. And we don't need to be talking to kids about the complexities of race. I mean, is this a new phenomenon that's happened in the last few years? Because the last time I checked, there have been black people in the United States, or what is now the United States, since 1619, right? We've been told that, you know, that, hey, this country became a country in 1619 when the first black person set foot on American soil. Even her shirt backs it up, where it says, "Dear black women, thank you for saving America." You know, I bet that this girl goes around fantasizing about like some Tyrone finding her ever so adorable and just wrecking her. I bet that's her biggest fantasy.
So I decided to write this book with the hope that white children growing up today will see their privilege and use it for good.
Oh, I have privilege apparently, and I have to use it for good now. But if it's privilege, then why do I have to do anything with it? Are you trying to take away my privilege? Is that what you're doing? You're trying to take that away from me? Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. These people.
Let's be the parents that decide not to perpetuate the myth that all children start from the same spot. And
who thinks that all children start from the same spot? That is a ridiculous thing to think. There's absolutely no evidence to suggest that all children start from the same spot, even children born into the same family. I know this because, my brother was born with all sorts of advantages over me.
Instead, let's empower our children with the knowledge to build a new space together. Hi.
I like how she says, like, we got to build a new space together. No wonder she loves this book. I mean, look at her space. She's got an LGBTQ flag and a BLM flag. Even though I don't know, she probably is gay. She's probably like the gayest woman in the entirety of North America. But she's definitely not black. Not that you can't support BLM if you're not black, but why? They're a communist terrorist organization who wants to eradicate white people. So you would be, you know, one of the first ones to be executed there.
My name is Ben, and this is my book about white privilege. White privilege? What's that? Well, first I have to explain to you what I mean by white. I want you to look at the color of your skin. What color is it? When I look at my arm, it's kind of a pinkish reddish beige like the color of this page.
That page is not a pinkish reddish beige. It's more of a yellow.
But when people talk about what color I am, they would say white.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier to say white than it is to say pinkish reddish beige.
But why? If white is actually the color of this page and my skin looks different, then what does it mean that I'm white? Well, grown-ups a long time ago decided to create labels for people.
Yeah, they did that because it was really easy to tell the differences between people based on their skin color in the past.
These labels were determined by skin color. There's a long and complicated reason for this, but we don't have time to get into it. Some of these labels were white, black, brown, etc.
You know, it's interesting. I've been around minorities my whole life. I was born into a poor neighborhood. I had neighbors that were not white. I never once heard anybody call any of them brown. Not even once. That's something that's happened in the last few years, like the last 5 or 6, maybe longer than that, maybe even 10 years. But still, it didn't happen until recently. And you saying this has happened a long time ago? Yeah, I somehow I doubt it.
Okay, now we need to talk about the other word, privilege. Privilege is when someone has an advantage that they haven't earned.
Really? You have an advantage you haven't earned. Are you sure about that? Because last time I checked, the definition of privilege is just having an advantage, whether it was earned or unearned. So what about me? What about me having health insurance that I get through my employer? That is a privilege that I earned because I went to school for a long time to learn how to do what I do. I even worked in the animation industry for a time. I honed my skills. I learned how to be better at my craft. And now I reap the benefits of that by getting the privilege of health insurance. The people are just, you like live in your own little world, your own little special place, don't you?
Like when your classmate is always chosen to be team captain just because their mom is the coach.
Well, that's a specific type of privilege called nepotism. And it's generally frowned upon and even illegal in some cases.
When you're racing a friend, but they get a head start.
Why would your friend get a head start? Why would you be friends with that person?
So then, what is white privilege? White privilege is when people who are white have additional benefits, advantages, and fewer barriers to overcome than people of color. People of color are folks with black or brown skin or of a specific race or ethnicity.
Okay then. So, can you describe these benefits that people have? Can you prove that they exist? These benefits and privileges that white people have over other people. And now you want to go in and say ethnicity in there. Well, there's more than one white ethnicity. So are you talking about people who are white of a different ethnicity than what? Anglo-Saxon? Can you define your terms here, or are you just making stuff up?
That doesn't mean that if you're white, you aren't talented or smart or your life is easy. It means that you have extra privileges just because of the color of your skin. Really? Yes, really.
No, not really, because I've never received any of these privileges. Now, where are they? Where are all the benefits I get? These supposed benefits don't exist in the real world that I've ever seen. You want to argue? Oh, well, if you weren't white, you'd be in prison right now. That's what it would mean, because you wouldn't be as well off as you are. You can't even begin to prove that.
So, what are some of those advantages? Sometimes they're small, and sometimes they're really big. Like,
kind of like you. And look, if you're a bigger person, I got nothing against you. I've had many overweight people come through my life that were good to me. But the fact of the matter is, being overweight is unhealthy and it is unattractive. You are putting money and effort into makeup. I can see it on your face. So why are you doing that instead of putting money and effort into the gym? Because that's going to go a lot farther for making you look good than putting on makeup. I don't know what to call it, hypocrisy, narrow-mindedness, short-sightedness, but whatever it is, I've never understood why women are like obsessed with makeup, but then they'll be overweight.
the privilege of always seeing people who look like you in books and movies.
my favorite Jedi. Put the two of them up on the screen. These are my two favorite Jedi. You can look at the screen and see them. One of them isn't even human, and the other one is not white. Yet somehow I identify with them. It's almost as if I have the ability to think beyond my own skin complexion. Huh. What a concept.
That might seem like no big deal, but imagine if no one looked like you in your favorite movie. Wouldn't that make you feel left out or sad?
Oh, it makes me want to do it. Don't you just hate when that happens? I can't believe that's just the worst thing ever. I hate it so much.
The drawing room, I saw Philip lying on the floor.
Or it can be in the people who are usually in charge, like teachers, your parents' boss, and presidents.
Well, right now I'm a teacher and I'm white, but my boss is black and he's a teacher. My office mate is black and he's a teacher. I got someone a job at my company who's Asian. I work with another Asian man. There's Hispanic people there too, and wow, it's almost as if teachers come in all shapes and sizes. And presidents, well, we had a black one for 8 years, and now we have a black vice president. So maybe you should move to a country in Africa, and then you'll see all sorts of black people in power. You'll see black teachers everywhere. You see black people on TV. Huh. What a concept that, you mean other countries where other races are dominant have these peoples already in position of power that are not white.
Those people are usually white. This is probably something you've never really thought about. That's okay. But don't you often wonder why those people are often white and not another color?
Yeah, I noticed that. It's almost as if we're like letting white people have jobs in this country or something. Like, why would we ever do that? I mean, just another example of how the United States is just totally backwards. White people having jobs.
White privilege could also be in things you don't have to worry about, that people of color do. Like feeling unsafe when you walk past a police officer.
Maybe don't be a jerk and the police won't bother you.
Having people assume you're bad at something because of your skin color.
Yeah, I believe it was 2020 did a report on that years ago. They gave people the same test. It was a golf-based test. It was black people. They said, this is a test of your intelligence to half the people. The other half of the people, they said this is a test of your sports intelligence. Guess who achieved better on the test? The people who were told this is a measure of your sports intelligence. It's not white people assuming that black people are inferior.
Easily finding a Band-Aid that matches your skin tone.
Yeah, that's something important that we need to worry about. There's clear Band-Aids, at least. The tape part of them is clear. The reason Band-Aids are light-colored is because you can easily tell when you start bleeding again if your Band-Aid is light-colored. That's it. And besides which, this book is for 6-year-olds. Well, hey, 6-year-olds want to have cartoon characters on their Band-Aids.
Or people always asking you where you're really from.
Yeah, like it's asked if you have an accent or if you seem exotic in some way. That's it. It doesn't happen if you're just another color. And you know what? I recently, not that long ago, before COVID, went to Asia. I was walking down the street and I'm like, why are people staring at me? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not like them. So, this is not a problem of the race that you belong to, but rather of the country you belong to.
These are just some of the ways that white privilege can show up without anybody noticing. In fact, part of having white privilege can mean that you don't even know you have it. The thing about white privilege is that you don't have to think about being white. This was also true of me.
So I don't even know that I have white privilege, so it's unseen, it's unheard, it's unfelt. Can't smell it, can't taste it. So in other words, it doesn't actually exist. That's what you're talking about? Yeah, so it's something I can ignore then. Wow, what a concept.
As a kid, I never thought about being white. I never thought that I had extra privileges. But because of my white privilege, strangers smiled at me when I walked down the street.
How can you gauge that? How can you tell that somebody is smiling at you because you're white?
I would get invited to more places and parties.
Again, how can you possibly know this? How is it that you can tell that you got invited to more places than other people because of the color of your skin?
I felt safe when out and about.
Well, the good job your parents made a safe environment for you. And perhaps it's because, hey, you We live in the United States, which is a fairly safe country.
I had more opportunities.
How could you possibly know that you had more opportunities than somebody else? And how could you possibly know, if you did have more opportunities, how could you possibly know that it was because you were white?
People didn't look down on me.
Maybe it's because you're not short. Try being a short man. People look down on you all the time. They also think you're stupid, too, for some reason.
And I had a better shot at success.
How can you know this? How can you know that you had a better shot at success than somebody else? You know, I ride my bike here in Southern California. I ride my bike through this neighborhood of houses. And there's one house that I ride past that a black couple lives there. I see them out doing yard work. I don't own a house.
I had all these advantages even though I grew up without a dad, no money, and never really knew what tomorrow would look like.
I grew up with a dad and no money. Okay? So somehow you had more privilege than I did. I don't get how it is that you had all this privilege, because people didn't smile at me when I walked past them in my neighborhood. They threatened me because I was white. Okay? So where are you getting these notions from?
Having white privilege doesn't mean that everything about my life is perfect or better than a person of color. It means that I had a head start. I didn't earn that head start. I didn't ask for that head start, but I had.
How can you be certain that you had that head start? And again, this comes back down to your country. You know, you're going to have majority privilege in a country. Majority privilege exists in Hispanic countries where you don't get as much, you know, where the Hispanic people are more likely to get ahead because there's just more of them. It's the same thing in African countries. It's the same thing in Asian countries. And okay, maybe if you go to those countries and you're white, you'll find out that it's really easy for you to get ahead in those countries. So maybe I'm wrong. Well, you're white a white lady. You got all this white privilege, right? So why don't you go to one of those countries where white people are definitely the minority and see how far you get?
I had a head start because I was white. But here's the thing. I could feel guilty about my white privilege, which I did for a while. But what good would that do? Who would that help? It doesn't make me a bad person to have white privilege, but I can't pretend that it doesn't exist.
It doesn't make you a bad person to have white privilege. Then how come that's all I ever hear is white privilege is evil, it's bad, it's the worst thing ever?
So instead of feeling guilty, I realized I needed to see it. It was up to me to accept that my privilege was there and to learn more about it and how it affects people around me, especially people of color. Use it for good. I also learned that I could use my privilege for good. You can too. Commit to listening to people of color, learning from them, and helping others without your privilege, which sometimes means stepping back and letting them take the lead.
Really? So how do I go about determining what my white privilege has advantaged me with? And how do I go about determining what that should cost me and therefore what I should be paying non-white people? How much I should be paying non-white people for my white privilege? Do you have an answer for that? For this made-up invisible concept that doesn't actually exist?
Give it up. Since I didn't earn my privilege, it's not really mine. But I have the power to give it up. When it puts me at the front of the line, when it gets in the way of somebody else, or when it can lift someone up. It's not a...
I rent an apartment. Now, if I weren't white, would that mean that I am only able to rent a room? And so, therefore, should I give up my apartment to someone who is not white? What if there's no candidates available who aren't white? The only people looking for housing are white. This stuff makes no sense.
It's not always clear how to do this, but it's important to try. When we do these things, we should not expect an award for it. It's just the right thing to do. Seeing your privilege isn't easy. It took me a long time.
Yeah, I have a lot of trouble seeing invisible things too.
Using it for good and giving it up is even harder. But if you're white and you're reading this book, I just want to say, understanding and acknowledging your white privilege is not just important. It is your responsibility. Have the courage to ask the question, what privileges do I have because I'm white? Then have even more courage to find out the answers. The end. Continue reading, continue educating yourself, and I will see you guys later.
There was some good advice you gave there at the end, Sydney. You should probably take it under advisement yourself. because obviously you haven't read enough and you haven't educated yourself at all. It's ridiculous stuff. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate everybody stopping by and supporting my channel, and I'll see you in the next video.